2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Hour 2 of Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on this Friday, the 27th day of April, 2018. Along with Phil Kornbluth, Professor Tom Hayes, I'm Will Pelagic. Hope you're enjoying yourself on this Friday. Clemson has tied things up on a Kyle Wilkie single through the right side or through right center field. 2-2 between the Tigers and Cavaliers. They play in the top of the fourth inning. We'll keep you updated on that. NFL draft rounds 2 and 3 getting underway tonight here in mere moments. Round 2 will commence. Browns are on the clock. But right now we head to the birdies and bogeys of the matter, Corn, as we go to the event that you absolutely abhor because of the things that are ancillarily involved with it.
We welcome in George Bryan III here on Sports Talk, Birdies and Bogeys of South Carolina. And are you in New Orleans?
No, I am in Victoria, Canada.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you are up.
The Canadian PGA Tour qualifying called the McKenzie Tour, and with my son-in-law and my son, and then a student of mine, Shaw James from Charlotte. And actually, Shaw lives in Columbia now. So these three are pursuing their goals and dreams. Hey, a lot like I did notice. I'm not in New Orleans, but got a couple locals right there in the middle of it.
Absolutely.
Good.
I want to ask you, I'm kind of boycotting this event because of the stupid walk-up music thing they're going to have this weekend. What's your, as a golf purist, George? Now, come on, don't let me down. What's your take on having walk-up music at the tee box? Walk-up music in golf. Seriously.
I'm a little bit mixed up with that. Just I like quiet. I prefer quiet, but I'll have to admit that that particular event in New Orleans, it could be appropriate. I don't know how much time you spent there, but it's pretty loud there.
I feel like it fits the mood of the city, does it not, GB?
I gotta admit that the event it's got plenty of spice and variety. It could fit. It could fit. And hey, the one thing that Wesley, I got a lot of questions. What Wesley was going to use or whatever. He doesn't have to worry about that now.
No, -3 does not make the cut. He was paired with John Rahm. Now, how do they know each other, and why did they end up playing together?
Hey, they got paired in Greensboro in both of their first season, or actually before their first season, first season on tour 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they had a blast playing golf together. And even though neither one of them played very good there, it seems like neither one of them played very good again in New Orleans. So I don't know how this pairing is going to work out. But he is a fine young fella and full of personality, humor, and he's just going to be fabulous for the world of golf. And boy, does he have game more than he has shown so far. I'm just waiting. I thought this was going to be a breakout weekend for him, but I don't know. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to talk to Wesley.
Corn mentioned the local connection, Kevin Kisner, -12 playing with Scott Brown. Interestingly enough, that's one off the lead. It's weird. I thought Kiz was going to have a little run when he was at RBC, but he's taken some of that positive momentum along with Scotty Brown, and they've played very well. 62 first round, 70 earlier today.
I'll tell you what, they both are incredibly gritty, and they enjoy each other's company. They really know how to play. I hope the wind blows really hard, difficult situations, and they'll be fun to watch. Those guys are really, really good. And they play right there at Palmetto Club when they're home. And hey, I tell you, I got to mention Peterson, Coach Grumel. They're sitting there at 10 under. Point out, these guys, John like their area and local favorite. Wouldn't be a
talking with George Bryan, Birdies and Bogeys around the South Carolina SEC tournament is going on at Sea Island in Georgia. They've moved into the match portion, 8 teams advanced. USC did not, George. They finished 13th at plus 25. If it weren't for Missouri, they'd have finished last. So once again, if you're not Missouri, you're last. I could use that in NASCAR. If you're not Missouri, you're last.
Not nice.
So anyway, South Carolina struggling a bit in this particular tournament. Surprised you? The Gamecocks did not show up well in the championship?
Really did. They have, in spots, they have a great team down in that particular format on that golf course. Get a little bit on the wrong side of the bounce, and that's just what happens. I'm sad for the Gamecocks. They definitely better team than that. I have to look forward now, I guess, to the NCAA.
Yeah.
I think that's the next step.
Yeah, they'll find out. They'll find out on Wednesday where they go. What did you think of the news about Tiger Woods signing up to play Quail Hollow back-to-back with the Players?
Hey, I think that's great for golf. And as I've talked before, although I hadn't watched him up close play, I've seen from afar that short game of his, and there's no question he's got it right now. And I tell you what, he likes that golf course too. I'll be watching him. I'll be at TPC now, and although I will not be back for Quail, I'm still in Canada next week. I look forward to TPC.
George, the tour a couple of years ago, they moved the Players into May, so we'd have a major in April, an almost major in May, another major in June, July, August, and you got the Wells Fargo is also an event, though it's not anywhere in the category or near a major. The people love it. Huge crowds. It's great for television, the Green Mile and all that kind of stuff. These 2 weeks coming up after having the Masters and the RBC around here, these 2 weeks coming up with Charlotte and then the Players, really big for golf, I think, and really turns the focus back on the game for a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. I love the momentum. I love how it's stacked up. I'm really sad to see a change. However, if they move it earlier in the schedule, whatever they do, as long as they don't move it too far off the spring, I love that powerful start. I've always looked at I would prefer March to be our opening month, but it turns out Augusta, that's the real live month. And
yeah,
we've got the spring in the whole world right in our backyard. So I just want more people to appreciate it and then play more.
Well, the one thing the one thing though, George, I mean, with the PGA Championship in May now starting in 2019, how do you feel that kind of stacks the field almost a little differently? It almost kind of lengthens that blitz, if you will.
You know, that will be a lot of fun. The way golf's going, at least for us locally, the more power early, the better off we are. The more enthusiasm early in the season, maybe it'll carry it later. We've always, in our, this is just my opinion, in our local area, the fall is dominated by football, and maybe a stronger start will cause for a better ending. We need more momentum early, a bigger pow. I like the idea.
Well, I mean, first of all, it seems like the golf season never ends now with the way they have, after the championship, they start the season over again, like in October. Then they spend all that time out on the West Coast in Hawaii and the West Coast. And then, it finally gets to the East Coast in early to mid-March. And then we start building towards Augusta. To me, that's when the interest starts to build, but I think it's only natural since we're here on the East Coast.
Phil, the golf season should be 365. It should never.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I wish I could play at 365.
Well, you can. We get together.
I know.
And on this radio, your game gets unbelievably big. I mean, you know that.
Yeah.
We grow your game right now. It's growing as we speak.
I've got to work on it so I can make it bigger. Got to make it bigger. George, thank you. But real quick, how is GB4 doing up there in Canada?
Well, he's got the qualifying starts next week.
Okay.
He's playing really good golf, so we'll keep our fingers crossed and some prayers, and all three of them will get by.
Sounds good. Thank you, man.
All right.
That's George Bryan, birdies and bogeys throughout the state of South Carolina. Austin Corbett out of Nevada is the first pick of the second round. We'll keep you updated on some of the local interest as well. Clemson's taking a 3-2 lead on Virginia here on Sports Talk.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome back to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. The NFL Draft Day number 2 has begun in earnest. You know, yesterday I was getting on Cleveland for not taking Bradley Chubb. So today they take Nick Chubb with their second pick of the second round after taking a guard out of Nevada to start day. In my mind, I find it hard to believe their day one draft strategy, Mayfield and then the corner out of Ohio State. I think they took the wrong quarterback, and I think they should have taken Bradley Chubb. Call me crazy.
Well, maybe the scouts were looking at the Sugar Bowl last year and saw how exciting Oklahoma and Georgia were, so they picked a Georgia running back.
I tell you what,
pick Mayfield.
I like California quarterbacks personally, and you had two of them sitting there to be picked, Darnold and Rosen, and passed on both of them. You know, the thing about
I know why you like California quarterbacks, because you've had one do really well for you.
Absolutely, I think, but I do think California quarterbacks have a little something extra. Most of them come from high flying offenses, and not even if you come from a smaller school in California, typically you're throwing the ball all over the place. And in today's NFL, that's what it is. It's throwing the ball. That's why the Panthers pick of Moore to augment their offense with his speed, considering there was a nice drop-off there from their top receiver to top two receivers on down the list. Now, that's probably a good pick for the Panthers. It's going to give Cam Newton another piece of weaponry to work with. So I think that was obviously a smart move by the Panthers to give themselves another piece of offensive weapons. Just watching the ESPN coverage of Nick Chubb, and it was an equal opportunity insult to the state of South Carolina. They showed footage of him first breaking tackles against Clemson. Then they showed footage of him breaking tackles against South Carolina. So, you know, both of them, Gamecocks and Tiger defenders, had their full of Chubb back in the day.
Well, I tell you what, you say you love California quarterbacks. But, you know, from their last run of luck, I would stay away from any Southern California quarterback.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. That's where I you know, the team that I root for already tried the whole top 5 pick with a Southern California quarterback, and look how that went. Got him to 2 AFC championship games, but nothing beyond that.
Arizona Cardinals tried that strategy too,
and it didn't work for them either.
No.
I mean, the only really, I guess you would call him successful quarterback of this vintage from Southern Cal, Carson Palmer. It's really the only one.
You mean from the University of Southern California?
Yes.
Strictly talking about Southern Cal.
Yes. It's the only one.
Yeah. I mean, they've had some guys who are lingerers on teams, you know. They just they didn't break through in big fashion like they thought they would, but he would be the one. And now he's retired, right? That's why Rosen is going to the Cardinals.
Yes.
So I just, you know, look at California quarterbacks over the years. I'm not just talking about Aaron Rodgers. I'm talking about, I mean, you can go way, I mean, listen, it's foolish. The state of California, the West Coast quarterbacks, those offenses, they've produced a lot of NFL quarterbacks, big-time quarterbacks over the years.
The other Southern Cal quarterbacks, Matt Barkley, Rob Johnson, Matt Castle, Rodney Peete, my boy Sean Salisbury.
and my man, the most trusted man in the PD, Bob Juback, chimes in with this text to remind us he's also an old sports guy, Bob Juback. So he knows his sports.
Yes.
Josh Allen is from California. He is a California quarterback.
But he's not from Southern California.
No, he was from Wyoming, but I mean, he was, I guess, reared in California.
Right.
I'm actually thinking, though, about people who played their ball in California.
Yes.
You know, I mean, even go and look at Fresno and the Carr brothers.
Right.
They've put out, you know, great quarterbacks. So I just think there's something about
playing all year round
passing
helps.
Quarterbacks out of the state of California seem to do well.
I like quarterbacks out of Philadelphia myself.
I mean, you know, I'm just saying, Tom Brady did grow up in the state of California as well.
That's where Matt Ryan is from. He's from
yeah.
Oh, he's from Philly.
Yeah, he's from Philly.
I was thinking, okay, yeah. I mean, listen, not every quarterback's from California. No. I'm just saying I was looking at it, and if I'm the Browns, you know, I mean, Mayfield looks great and all that kind of stuff. He's not, you know, he's short. You know, to me, the words they used when if you didn't know who they drafted and you know, closed your eyes, went back in time and looked at the words they used about him, it was Johnny Manziel all over again.
Right. That's why football. I think it's not going to work.
Yeah, he loves football. He's
a winner.
Stuff. Yeah. All this stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, might be round 2.
It just to me thinks it's not gonna work.
Listen, a team with a head coach who was 1-31,
it's not gonna work
in his career. Good luck.
I just don't think it's gonna work. And I think the other part of this too is that, you know, he wasn't gonna be able to sit behind somebody. I think that's part of the reason why the Browns took him.
Hey, Darius Leonard. going to the Colts.
South Carolina State.
How about that?
And that's kind of
that's a great pick for them too.
Leads me to kind of what I wanted to say. Some of the projections for the guys who are going to be picked possibly today. Leonard was one of them, according to my man Lance Zerline of NFL.com, who is a draft guru. Deion Kane is projected to go today, former Clemson wide receiver. Not really much else projected as of today. The other ones involved are Clemson's Dorian O'Daniel, Taylor Hearn, Sky Moore of South Carolina, Jamarcus King, and Taylor Stallworth. They might go tomorrow. But Darius Leonard goes today to Indianapolis.
And the Colts just took Braden Smith. They had back-to-back picks, 4 and 5 in the second round, so they take the guard from Auburn after they took Leonard, the linebacker from SC State from Lakeview. That town has put out, for a town of 500 people, and a stoplight that doesn't work, they have put some players in the NFL.
I would test the water.
Braden Smith, guard from Auburn, now goes to the Colts. Back-to-back picks for the Dolts.
Here's the Dolts, really?
No, they're terrible. That's why they got back-to-back picks in the second round.
Well, that quarterback has been on the shelf for a while.
Here's a little bit from Marty Herney, the Panther GM, on their pick yesterday of DJ Moore out of Maryland, wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it's how it goes is, and we knew that we get to 18 and 19. We said that's kind of when the draft started for us because we knew those guys would go. So anytime that a team would pick a player that wasn't in our group, it became a math problem as we got closer, and we knew that at a certain point that we were going to get somebody that we wanted to get at that pick. And when DJ was there, we were excited. Very excited.
And Ridley, and 2, what was it about DJ that you just liked him a little better?
It's just he's 210 pounds. He's excellent run after the catch. He's a little bigger. He's still very, very explosive, and they're 2 excellent receivers. So it's very close. But we just thought that his athleticism and his run after the catch is elite.
Marty, you guys pretty early in the process. What was it about him that really popped off early for you?
Well, again, I think when you watch tape, he shows he's got a lot of position flexibility. He can play really all 3 receiver positions. He's fast. He's sudden. He plays with really good play strength. And really fought through. I think they had three injuries to their starting quarterbacks. He played with 4 different quarterbacks. His mindset and his attitude, I think, stayed the same throughout the whole season. Extremely competitive player, and he makes plays.
When you were when you both were evaluating him, and obviously you were out there early on the circuit, going to games and things like that. Was there a moment to you, or kind of an aha part of the process for you, where you saw him and you thought, okay, this is the guy I want?
Yeah, I don't think there was one moment, but I think the thing that does stand out, the trait that stands out probably the most of all his strengths, is just his ability to run after the catch. I mean, when he has the ball in his hands, he turns into a running back, and he breaks tackles and big plays, and he has the speed to stretch the defense and go deep, and runs good routes, and he's got a lot of strengths as a receiver.
That is Marty Herney, Panther G. I mean, one more thing on Nick Chubb. That was the pick that Cleveland got in exchange for the $17 million that they had to take on to pay Brock Osweiler to basically do nothing. So that's probably the most expensive second-round pick in NFL history. Now let's call with Monty Dutton next on Sports Talk.
How about this one?
latest on this weekend's race is around the corner. The full Monty on NASCAR is next. This is Sports Talk.
It is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, as the gentlemen of NASCAR continue this season to one of the restrictor plate races at Talladega. We bring in a full Monty on NASCAR for his weekly visit with us. He joins us on Sports Talk here on South Carolina Radio Network. Monty, your thoughts as we now turn our attention to the Super Speedway at Talladega?
Well, I think that today's practice results are sort of par for the course at Talladega because it's a racetrack that opens the doors of opportunity to people who don't run at the front of the pack lots of times. Just as there was a sort of an unpredictable finish in the Daytona 500 in which Austin Dillon won. If you look at the practice results, there's sort of a mix. Like Ty Dillon is real fast, whereas Austin Dillon is who won the Daytona 500, and Ty Dillon drives for a team that isn't as well funded as some others. But you also have the people like Kyle Busch and Martin Truex and others up there. Last year, both races at Talladega were won by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And, that's the fact that a person who has not put together many wins, won both races at this track last year, underscores the unpredictability of the race. There may well be a lot of contenders who are eliminated by wrecks, and it may come down to the person in the right place. It's the field that is watered down a bit.
I will say this, Monty. We talked about and we saw the big wreck with McMurray, and I want to talk about that. But I guess what about the super speedway? Does it devalue the skill? Does it take kind of some of the stuff that we see in the mile and a halfs, out of play with this, or what about the super speedways and the restricted places kind of turns this into its own animal?
Well, it's always been the most unpredictable of races, and that kind of racing is sort of unusual because it may be, well, it broadens the number of people who can win, but it also means, there are, when you run on a restricted plate track, you're running wide open all the way around, and it becomes more of a game of I always say it's not high speed chess, it's high speed Tetris, because a lot of the problems are caused by a shape switching into a hole that it won't fit, and all hell breaks loose. And so there is, most drivers when they first come there, they just think it's all car. They think that I'm just along for the ride. But the fact is that certain drivers do have almost a mystical knack for racing there. One of them, quite famously, was the late Dale Earnhardt. Dale Earnhardt Jr. had quite a knack for Talladega and Daytona. And Talladega is different from Daytona because it's much wider and there's more room, and it sort of gives drivers enough rope to hang themselves, because all of a sudden, they're two abreast, then they're three abreast, and they're four abreast, and then something's about to happen because, it's sort of been likened to a parking lot going 200 miles an hour. And so it's very hairy, and it is not a sport where skill is very important, but it's a different kind of skill.
Monty Dutton joining us, the full Monty on NASCAR. Jamie McMurray, as I mentioned before, was part of a big wreck. He was leading at the time, and it just kind of shifts and makes us think about not just the unpredictability, but the fact that it could fall apart for anybody, especially at the front, whereas, a lot of times with these races, if you stay up front, you're usually out of trouble.
Well, you can't, at those mile and a halves, oftentimes, there's not much dicing. Someone slowly catches someone, and then they dice a little bit, but when they get by, they pull away. Nobody at Talladega, if you pull 100 yards ahead, it sort of leads to the cars behind you building up momentum, and a lot of times they'll just roar past. It's not like it once was in the days of the so-called slingshot, where the second place car was clearly had an advantage, because he would, whip around the other car. But now a group of cars whips around the one car. And a lot of times if you get in the wrong place, you put yourself in a position where other people can exploit you from behind. And all of a sudden, one of the things about Talladega is when there's two lines and there's a split between them, and one car gets in the middle, it it really is. I think you have to almost be there to notice that it's almost like the car is being flushed down the toilet down the middle. Another thing is the dynamics change with rule changes, and every year there's some surprises, most of which we've probably seen in Daytona. But it really is, in my opinion, quite fascinating to watch, because you go to this track and you look and see, wow, what worked last time didn't work this time. So it's it is fascinating to watch, in my opinion, and it's also fascinating to, you sort of can't afford to look away, because you could get up and go to the refrigerator for a beverage, and when you get back, there's cars flipping and there's smoke everywhere. And so, it's almost like you can't afford to miss a second of it, because something crazy could happen anytime. And yet sometimes you'll go a long time and nothing will happen. It sort of lulls you to sleep. It might lull the drivers to sleep.
Certainly so. Kyle Busch has certainly been lulling the other drivers to sleep with 3 consecutive wins. Of course, with the track at Texas and then the 2 short tracks at Bristol and in Richmond. But obviously, again, this being a different animal, how does his race acumen compare? And obviously, how does it fit this raceway that they have coming up here?
Well, he's good. He's good everywhere. He's just a superlative driver. But, it's sort of like one of the interesting things about racing right now is when you look at, I always sort of divide them into 2 groups of drivers. Kyle Busch is a driver who's extremely impressive because of his ability to save a car that seems to be out of control. And I've always said that with Kyle Busch, everyone talks about how great he is at saving a car. And over the years, Jimmy Johnson, the amazing thing about him is how seldom he has to, because he's a smooth driver. But Johnson has won his share of plate races, but he's also met with disaster in a lot of them. He's one of those drivers who has a few wins, but he also has a poor average finish because he's had many disastrous days.
Of course, looking at some of the other news around the NASCAR world, we saw this earlier this week. Wanted your comments on it with Matt Kenseth basically coming back to NASCAR on a part-time basis. He will split time in the number 6 with Trevor Bayne. How surprised were you to see that move, not just from Kenseth's part, but also from the fact that Bayne's stepping back and reducing his schedule?
Well, I think that it probably was bound to happen because his talent that was on the sideline, who basically was forced out of sport because the sport couldn't afford him, because there's a whole rash of young drivers who gain opportunities. And the reason is probably that as the sport has begun to struggle, teams are, but then predictably, this has been a year in which there are a lot of new faces, and most of those new faces have had their moments, but not really done all that well. And so there gets to be pressure from sponsors. And so all of a sudden the market value of a Matt Kenseth increases again. And so I think it's wonderful to have him back. I think a lot of people don't appreciate, maybe you have to be an insider, but Matt Kenseth is one of the most fun guys because he has a wonderful deadpan sense of humor, and he's fun to interview because you have this little have this little thrust and parry back and forth where he says something funny. He has a mischievous sense of humor that's really low key, and people don't know him well, mistake him for being quiet. He's not. He is quiet, but he's deadpan. He has a wonderful sense of humor. I think it's great to have him back. I'm really hope he does well.
Last one for you, Monty, real quick. Give us your pick for Talladega.
Talladega is a place where every week you make a pick, and people give you a hard time because you made the obvious choice. At Talladega, you can pick the obvious choice, and it's a long shot because of the way things are. So I've been busy all day. I'll tell you what let's do. Let's let me pick a guy who has taken his lumps and been in a lot of wrecks, but happens to be a good plate racer. I think I'll pick Jamie McMurray.
All righty. He flipped out in the practice, but we'll see if he makes it work here on Sunday. Monty, thank you so much for the time. Enjoy the racing this weekend.
I appreciate you having me.
As the full Monty on NASCAR, we'll be back with some interesting words from a former South Carolina player who was on a national stage earlier this morning here on Sports Talk.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network is brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Visit Founders Federal Credit Union's website online, foundersfcu.com. Learn how they can assist you in all of your financial needs. South Carolina fallen behind 3-0 now to Vanderbilt in the bottom of the first inning. Clemson still clinging to a 3-2 lead, bottom of the sixth. Jacob Hennessy has given way to Spencer Strider to try and close things down, or at least to attempt to try and close things down to get the Tigers a victory in their opening game. Corn, you said you had some recruiting late notes.
Yeah, just a couple of other notes I wanted to pass along. USC target defensive back Nick Harvey has set May 11th to announce between the Gamecocks, Arizona, Tennessee, and Auburn. Of course, he's the grad transfer from Texas A&M. So don't think he's visiting anywhere this weekend. Those are the four schools he has visited: USC, Arizona, Tennessee, and Auburn. So it looks like he graduates on the 11th and is settling in on that date. Clemson offered 2020 athlete Arik Gilbert of Atlanta. USC had previously offered him, and Clemson offered defensive end Savion Jackson of Clayton, North Carolina, another player that USC has already offered.
You had some thoughts about baseball replay in the ACC and the SEC?
Well, just from the SEC, you know, the SEC keeps stats on everything. And I was just looking over their notes from this week, and the average time it takes to do a replay in SEC play, that's the only time you can use a replay. The average time has been just a little over 2 minutes of a delay for the average replay in the SEC this year. So it seems like a nuisance, and it seems like it's longer than that when you're sitting there and waiting. But that's been the average time for a replay, about 2 minutes.
Are you surprised by how little that is, or how much?
I mean,
does it seem longer to you?
You mean, does it seem longer?
Yeah.
It seems longer when you're sitting there and you're
Right.
waiting and you're twiddling your thumbs. It takes time for the umpires to meet. I'm not sure when they start the clock. Do they start the clock when the umpires meet on the field and discuss it? Then two of them pair away and go and look at the replay. Is that when the clock starts on them?
Starts when they leave.
Yeah.
Starts when they leave.
They truck down to the
when somebody put their head under the hood.
Yeah, the way they have a little video area in the home dugout where they can go and take a look. Two of them do, and they review it. And 2 minutes is not that long in the grand scheme of things.
Kudos to my dad for pointing this out to me this morning. He watches the Fox Business shows, Varney and Company, in the morning, and he saw that Marcus Lattimore, former Gamecock and current director of player development for them, appeared this morning to talk not only about his journey in college football, but his new role with South Carolina, and started out by talking about what some of these players are going through right now and what he went through when he got his name called on draft day.
Because of the nature of my situation and some of the adversity that I faced while playing in college, I had no clue where I would be drafted. The guys who were helping me out, my agent, literally told me that you may be taken in the first round or you may go undrafted. So I had no clue. And the anticipation all weekend just really killed me.
But then you got the call.
I got the call in the 4th round, and I kind of equated to winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It was an amazing feeling. My family, all the emotions came out. It was just a great time. A time that I'll never forget. Top 5 happiest moments in my life.
Yeah, well done, sir. Well done indeed. Now, you are now Director of Player Development at the University of South Carolina. It's your job to prepare these youngsters for the big money world of real football. So what do you tell them? You got to tell them how to deal with all this money that's come showering at them. What do you say to them?
Yeah, so here's the deal. We have that select group of guys who will have that opportunity to go on and play at the next level. But majority of the locker room will have to go on and live a professional life outside of sports. So with those guys who do have that opportunity to go to the NFL, we have that conversation about the agent process and getting people around you, a great financial advisor who can educate you, and making sure you have a good team around you that can show you the process, show you exactly where your money's going, and a company that's based off integrity, because there are so many things out there that guys really get caught up in because they don't understand the process. I want to make sure my guys are educated.
But what about the other guys who, are not going to go on to the big money world of the NFL? What do you say to them about life after football without the money?
We all will experience that one day.
Yeah.
Everybody who plays sports, there's 100% chance that you're going to get injured. And I tell every single person that sits in my locker room, you have to work on your life's work, and you have to prepare. While you're here in college, take advantage of the opportunities that you have, because you have power, you have leverage. There's 84,000 people that watch you every single Saturday, 7 million people on ESPN. What are you going to do to use that? Use that power, use that leverage, and network while you're here. Get to know your alumni. Get to know your professors. Get to know the students. Make connections, because you played football at a Power 5 school. You got the leg up in any interview that you walk into. So we have techniques and strategies, and we bring in different speakers to help with professionalism and make sure that they're prepared for life after football, because you can get caught up in this athletic bubble, a thing that you've been doing for 15 years since you've been 7 years old, and you forget about the real world, and you don't learn real life skills. Well, you need that. So we focus on that here.
I've just got a few seconds left. You miss it, don't you? You miss running out on a field with 80,000 fans going crazy. You miss it.
It's a time in my life I'll never forget. I've made a lot of memories. I will say this, I don't miss playing football, but I do miss the locker room. I do miss being around the guys, because those relationships you have last forever.
That's from Varney and Company, the folks at Fox Business Network, talking to Marcus Lattimore. Really, in my mind, probably the most important asset that they got this offseason, more important than Dan Werner, more important than Brian McClendon being promoted. Yeah, that guy is going to do a lot of good for that program, I think, Horn.
No question about it. When the recruits come to South Carolina, one of the must-sees is Marcus Lattimore. Those who are –
and he's paid dividends already with recruits.
Oh, absolutely. And those who are from the area and maybe of course, you're talking about high school players, but maybe they're and Marcus is not so far removed that even high school seniors and juniors don't know who he is. But certainly their dads do, especially if they grew up in the Carolinas. So he is a must-see. He's this generation's George Rogers for this crowd. It used to be, and George is still a must-see as well. But it's harder for these younger guys to relate to George Rogers than it is for them to relate to Marcus Lattimore. And so he is the must-see guy, the must-visit guy besides your coach and your head coach and all that. He's the must-visit guy at South Carolina, and they're doing a wonderful job of implementing him through the process in a proper way and letting him deliver the message that he wants to deliver.
And, of course, Marcus Lattimore has his foundation. And let's face it, Marcus was dealing with speaking engagements while he was a player at South Carolina. In other words, he was networking while he was in school. And that was the key point I think he was trying to make there. Was he was saying, look, you're a football player at a Power 5 school. You don't know how much power you have just to connect with people and let them know you and learn how to network, because the doors will swing open for you. It's
star power. It's celebrity in a way too, Corn. I think too, Clemson capitalizes a lot on its branding and what they do with Dabo. I think the similar kind of strides can be made for South Carolina by capitalizing on a little bit of the Lattimore celebrity.
Well, and Clemson's capitalized on the celebrity of its players too. I mean, look up and down through the athletic office at Clemson, and the former standout players, starting with Jeff Davis, who was one of the first to come back and be established as one of those who would be used in that manner. And then, of course, he went on to establish various foundations and things in that office that they use to sell to the recruits beyond the game of football.
Hope you enjoyed this week. We'll do it all again for you next week. We'll keep an eye on what's going on with Clemson and Virginia, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt, and we'll wrap it up for you all on Monday. So long.